Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining this webinar today. My name is Miranda van den Buis. I'm Operational Manager at Cloudteam Company. The topic of today's webinar is the speed of Salesforce and will be presented by James Beasley, consultant at Cloudteam Company.
Thanks, Miranda, and good morning, everybody. So as Miranda mentioned, today's topic is the speed of Salesforce, and we'll be taking advantage of some of the Salesforce new features to build a custom app and exploiting the latest feature called Object Creator to satisfy this use case. This is based around continual professional development, and our management accountant called Clive says to the Salesforce team, "Can't this Salesforce thing you talk about help me manage my accounting CPD records throughout the year? As much as I love spreadsheets, it's a bit of a faff uploading evidence, and I suppose I should try to use my mobile phone like everybody else in this century." So with that, we understand that there's probably a spreadsheet knocking around this accountant is using to capture his CPD records. We found out they're Google Sheets, and we're going to have a quick look at the Google Sheet before we start building a Salesforce app from that. So flicking across to my browser, this is the Google Sheet that's been created and managed by Clive. We have a number of columns, so headers across the top, name, date, type of CPD, etc., etc. Scrolling down, there's about 43 records, so 44, take away the top row. There's various different Salesforce fields types here. We've got dates, we've got type of CPD, which is a pick list in the spreadsheet, hours, cost, name, another pick list here for status, which has planned, in progress, and complete. Notes, this one looks to be quite long. And last but not least, there's a URL field here where Clive has uploaded evidence such as certificates, like this one here. So with that in mind, we'll go and recreate the same function in Salesforce, import all the data, and we'll preserve these links to the URLs so so Clive can manage the existing photographs going forward, but we'll provide a better way in Salesforce of managing new ones. So I'm just going to go into Salesforce now. There's a new feature called Object Creator, which we're going to use today. There are two ways to get to it. One is from the App Manager. So if you go to the App Manager in the Setup menu, find a Lightning app, and go to Edit. This is a particularly useful way if you want to just drop the spreadsheet as an object into an existing app. You can go to Navigation Items, and there's a new button here saying Create, and you can create a custom object from a spreadsheet. So that's the first way, and that will drop the object straight into this app, and that will save you some time. Alternatively, and the way we'll use today, you can go to Object Manager within the Setup menu, press Create, and this used to be the one-step option. Now you can go to Create Object from Spreadsheet, and this just creates the object. It doesn't put it in an app, but you can then manage it from there and put your tab where you want to put it. So for today's demo, we'll go to Create Object from Spreadsheet. And it prompts us just to log in again. I'll pick the org I'm working on. And the first step is to select a spreadsheet. You can pick a Microsoft XLSX or a CSV file, upload it yourself that way. You can use Google Sheets if you use Google Drive, or you can use Office 365 or Office Drive here. So for today's demonstration, we know we have a Google Sheet, so we'll pick the middle option for Google Sheets. You get prompted to sign in to your Google account. And now it says select a spreadsheet to import. And we're going to pick the one entitled CPD, which is this one here. Then next. Now it's taking all the data from the spreadsheet now and it's giving us a kind of a preview here and a field mapping screen. The first thing to note is it says, do you want to take the field label source from a row in the spreadsheet? So we want to use row 1, this one here. So we're going to say detect the field label source from row 1. That sounds good. Next question, do we want to import the 43 rows of data? And you can say no, skip, or yes, import. And of course, we want to import this data for this business process. The last question before we get mapping is, do you want to create a new Salesforce name field, which is the primary key, the hyperlink in the object, or do you want to use one of your spreadsheet columns as the primary key, the name field? And looking at the data, let's just flick back to the CPD sheet. Column A is a nice primary key. It's a nice main field for the object. So we'll go for column A, which is the name field. Right. Salesforce is clever enough to look at the spreadsheet format and say, this column's date, this one's text, this one's a currency field. And it's done its best to kind of say the name, for example, building up the new finance system looks like text. We'll go with that one. Date of learning was a date field. Now, the type of CPD, if we go back to our sheet, this was the one that had a drop down and had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different options in the pick list here. So rather than being a text field, we're going to say, actually make type of CPD a pick list. Credit in hours was the number of hours credit claimed for this piece of learning. So that's a decimal, that's fine. Cost, if applicable. Currency, again, that's fine. Colleague's name, that was someone that typed in someone who they spoke to if it was a internal training. Text, again, fine. Status, let's just go back just to remind ourselves. This was, again, a 3-option pick list, so a finite list of values here. We don't want any old text going in. So we'll pick list for this one. Notes was text area, and it said long because it's recognized as more than 255 characters, which is great. And the last column was a URL for the image, and it's picked a URL field type. So with that, we'll go next. And it gives you by default the name of the spreadsheet as the object name. So we're going to actually call this CPD record, CPD records for the plural, and CPD underscore record for the API name. There are some advanced settings you can enable or disable. I'm going to leave these defaulted to on for now, but they're there for your use if you want to use them. Last but not least, press finish. And what this does now is it creates, first of all, the object, so the metadata, and then it creates the fields within the object, empty of course, and then it imports the data into that metadata. So it does the container first, the object and the fields, and now it's importing the rows into that object. It's looking good. It said 9 fields detected, 9 fields created, so that's good. 43 rows detected, 43 rows imported, so that sounds good. Right, let's go back into Salesforce and see what it's done then. So if we go to the Object Manager and refresh this, we should have an object called CPD record, created today. And here are our 9 custom fields on top of the standard Salesforce fields. So that's looking good. If we just go to the app launcher, type in CPD here. And then go to the all list view. Here are our 43 records. Straight away, it's looking like a spreadsheet, but it's much better than a spreadsheet. You've got inline edits here, for example. You can run reports and dashboards. And another nice feature just to mention is you can change this from a list view to a Kanban. Maybe we're summarized by credits in hours, so how much time has been spent, and we'll group by type of CPD. Straight away, we've got something we can interact with. We can drag things around. Again, it's much better than the spreadsheet. We've got instant totals improvements already. A bit of housekeeping now, because we've just set this object up so quickly. We're going to have to do a little bit of config just to get it looking really tip-top. So I'm going to go back to our object. And first things first, I'm going to tidy up the page layout. What Salesforce does when you add new fields quickly, it just drops them all off in the first section in the bottom left column. So you can see these are our custom fields here. So just a bit of housekeeping, I'll just get rid of owner. Oops. Move the date up. Type of CPD, credit, colleague's name. I'm going to actually remove status, and this will become apparent in a few minutes. Why? Notes was the text area long field. So this potentially has quite a lot of text. And there's nothing worse than seeing in a page layout a large chunk of text in a 2-column page layout, because you get a very tall section of text, very tall and thin. It looks a bit strange. So what I do normally is if I just drag on new section, untick these two tick boxes. That says don't show me this section header when I'm viewing or editing this page. Make it one column. So we've got a header that's not visible. If I just drop these two longer fields in there, they'll go full screen and there'll be no join to this new section. It will just appear. We'll see this in a second. I'll just make this section visible for the top and this system information section visible at the bottom as well. Okay, so we've saved the page layout. That should be looking a bit tidier when we go back to the record. The next thing is something called a compact layout. This is what's called the highlights panel when you view it on a Lightning page, the kind of top section across the top of the screen. A bit like a business card. It's got very, very concise information. We'll just go and tidy this up, get rid of the defaults and make it a bit more presentable. So we'd like to see the name of the CPD record, maybe the date, get rid of cost because not all of them have that. Not all of them have colleague's name or URLs. So maybe dates and credit and name. And one last thing to show you before I get the page up on the screen is when it creates the fields such as status being a pick list, the pick list order isn't necessarily the order you want it to appear on the screen. It just does it in the order it creates the records. So this order will be complete at the top, then in progress in the middle, then planned at the bottom. It doesn't really make sense to have that order. So if you put planned first, then logically you'll have in progress next, and finally complete once the training's been finished. So it's one thing to watch out for is it will just create the pick list values in a random order based on your data. Okay, we took status off the screen just now, and that was quite important. That was the one, this pick list. The reason being, we're going to use Salesforce's new path, fairly new path feature, and create a path on top of our Lightning page. So again, Salesforce setup, type in path, go to your path settings option, and then new path. Path name, we'll call it CPD status, so the object name, then the field name, and tab out for the API to populate. Which object? We'll go for our CPD record. What pick list? We've only got two, type and status. We've got status, of course. Then next. And you can see our order, which we've previously set up, is now active. Planned first, then in progress, then complete, which makes logical sense, as I said before. Next. When users reach a specific step in the path, help them celebrate their success. So we'll enable this nice little feature Salesforce has provided recently. And you can say when the status is set to complete, always give me some on-screen confetti. And you'll see this again in a second. Finish. Right, back to our object, CPD record. And we're going to build a new Lightning record page and put all the stuff we've just done on one page and make it ready for the user. So new. We're going to pick record page, as we're going to see the CPD record. CPD, which object, CPD record. Next. And we're going to pick header and right sidebar. Commonly used template. In the top, we're going to first of all add our highlights panel, and this is derived from the compact layout which we saw earlier. So we had name as the first one, then date, then credit. So it's just nice short and sweet information there. In the main body of the page, so the left-hand 2/3, we'll add in our record detail, which is our page layout. We've just tied it up with these two long, as you can see now, notes and URL for image, nice full width ones, thanks to our invisible section. And on the right, we're going to drop off a related list single of all the options we're going to pick files. This is so when Clive wants to upload photographs or scans, he can do so from his screen here in Salesforce. across the top underneath the highlights panel, we'll drop a path. And this is the kind of visual representation of a pick list. You have planned for the first green section here, in progress, then complete. And last but not least, just thinking this through, if you want to upload your learning evidence, you don't really want to do this or give the user the option to do this whilst the learning is planned. If they're uploading certificates when the learning is not complete, that doesn't make any sense. Nor should they be able to do this when it's in progress. They should only be able to upload their certificate when the status is complete. So if you click on this component on the screen and scroll down to set component visibility, we can say only show us this component when status equals complete. Done. That means that will only appear when this path is moved across to the last section, and then they can upload their certificates. So we'll save this. As it's the first time we've done this, we'll activate this and assign as the org default for desktop and phone, and save. Let's go and see how it looks. So if I just refresh this. It does often take a couple of refreshes to get the screen to load properly, but we'll have a look and see. Okay, so here's one of our records. We can see that it's gone through the plan stage to in progress. We've got all this text appearing full screen as opposed to half, which would be twice as long but half as narrow. A hyperlink to Google Drive. If we just change this to complete, and please note this white space here before we do this, and then set mark as current status. We've got our on-screen confetti, which is a nice user-friendly feature, and then we can upload files. So from here, Clive can upload a certificate and maintain his CPD records. I'm afraid I can't do it on screen today because my mobile phone's not playing with my laptop now, but I'm going to log into my mobile phone Salesforce app and just create a new CPD record. In fact, I'll upload an image to this one, and I'll show you on the screen once it's done. So bear with me a second. CPD. Just logging back in to see the new object. I'm afraid my phone's playing up. So let's go back to the slides. So in summary, what we've achieved today in just a few minutes, we've built out metadata, which I mentioned before is the object, is all the configuration without the actual data itself, the object, the fields, the page layouts, the path, all that stuff was built very efficiently. Data was imported efficiently as well. In one step, we created the metadata and data using Object Creator. The object was then quickly modified to make it a bit more user-friendly as opposed to defaulting out of the box. We've created a user-friendly mobile app, which I can't show you, I'm afraid, but it is working, and a desktop Salesforce app. So in 15 minutes, we've gone from this original spreadsheet to this. It's a Salesforce Kanban board. You can interact with this, totals, on-screen confetti with files option as well. And I couldn't show you this, but there is a mobile app which runs straight natively because of the way it's been set up. And it looks a bit like this on the screen. So on the first screen print, you can view existing records. In the middle screen print, this is how the new screen is. And if you want to upload pictures from your phone as opposed to printing things, scanning them, and everything else, you can then take a picture straight from your phone and add it back into the objects. There are a few things to watch out for. Because it was built so quickly, field level security is set to be only read and editable for these new fields for the system administrator only. So if you're going to publish this to groups of users, think about who should have access to those fields, read and or edit, and update those appropriately. The default object sharing settings is set quite openly to public read writes for this object. So again, if it's a confidential object, we want to have some security around this, think about making that private. Picklist values, as you saw, just default to as they were built. So as the records in the spreadsheet go into this database, whatever's first gets created at the top of the list. So you may have to think about ordering your Picklist values. The compact layout, which is the highlights panel, that's the top row in the Lightning page, will need some attention just to make it a bit tidier for you. And one thing I didn't show you really today, but if you import a field with a number format shown as a decimal, it defaults to 14,4. That means you can have up to 4 characters before the decimal place and 4 after, which might be a bit overkill having 4 decimal places for things like hours to today. We may have said 20.0000. We might just want to have 1 decimal place. So one thing to watch out for user experience there. And that's the end of the demo. Please go and invite any questions.
Hi James, it's Mandip.
Hey Mandip, hiya.
How you doing? Yeah, thanks for that. I was going to say, what happens if there's an issue when you import the data? So, like for example, you've got text in a number column within the spreadsheet. Do you have to go for the spreadsheet and data cleanse it, or is there anything that we can look out for? Yeah,
what it'll do. So if you go back to our spreadsheet, that's a good question. If we have, so this field column D, for example, was set up to be a decimal. If one of these cells had a letter Z in it rather than number 4, when you import, it will error. So it will set up all the metadata. Salesforce will create the object and all the fields, but they'll be empty, and it will error and say to you, "There's a problem importing the data, it didn't match. Please use data loader instead." So yeah, you should do data cleansing first. Make sure your data is really clean, or else you'll get an error. But it won't just error for the whole thing. It will create the metadata and do half the job, but you'll have to populate data afterwards using a secondary approach. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can just see a question from Alka. She's mentioned, how does it act when formulas are used in the sheet? Will it be imported just as a number, or does it do anything with the formula?
No, formulas will just be brought in as what's displayed on the screen. So if this cell here, D2, was actually a formula of 18 equals 18 plus 2, it'll display as 20 in the spreadsheet, and it'll port just as simply as number 20. It won't actually take the formula into Salesforce.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, I was going to say, last question, honestly. I was going to say, so once you've created, the object and the fields, can you add more fields and validation rules to it, or like you do with the normal custom objects?
Yeah, absolutely. If I just go back to Salesforce, I'll show you that. It's absolutely a normal object.
Cool.
So once you've built your kind of your base fields and config from the spreadsheet, you can always do new fields. You could do new validation rules as you wish. So it's a really good way of getting an object going really quickly. If you want to build out things like new relationships or other clever stuff or triggers from this, you can do so. So it's a normal object, just a very fast way of kind of springboarding into life.
Hi James, it's Dawn.
Hi Dawn.
Hello. Thank you for that. That's very good. I'm not a developer, so I was just thinking the target audience for this feature, this new feature, I'm assuming they are developers and not kind of the end users.
Yes, yeah, absolutely right. It would be for kind of Salesforce admins and more techie roles from there in. Yeah, the end users wouldn't have access to get to the setup menu and do this. So it's definitely a very administrative function for the more advanced end user or the kind of the IT guys or the Salesforce consultancy.
Brilliant, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else at all? No. Conscious of time, so we're just under the half hour. Many thanks for paying attention and listening. I hope that was interesting to you. Any further questions, please contact us at Cloudteam. Otherwise, many thanks.